Hey, Autumn Athletes, Larry Sorensen here, and today I'm going to connect with Shane Sheridan and find out what makes him an Autumn Athlete that's not done yet. Before we get started, please remember, if you like our content, like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications. Okay, we're going to get started here. Shane, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Why don't you start us off with a brief introduction of yourself?
I'm Shane Sheridan from Dublin in Ireland. I'm 65. I compete in massive sprinting. I'm married to Andrew, my wife. We've no kids. And I'm retired. I used to do sales.
Why don't you fill us in a little bit on your fitness history?
Fitness was generally just something as we grew up. I come from a big family. I have 8 brothers and 2 sisters, and we were just generally out playing and running around all the time, which we didn't realize was really a fitness program. Then at school, I played various sports: rugby, hockey, cricket. Not a particularly high level, but it kept me involved. And then when I finished school, I went straight to work. So I continued playing rugby, but more at a social level. So it was very hit and miss in terms of my fitness. Then I played some badminton and tennis. And then in my mid-40s, I moved into doing some high altitude trekking around the world, which I did till 53. And then I took up masters athletics, which I never knew even existed. And I've discovered a whole new world, which has just really made a big difference to my life.
So have you had any physical setbacks along the way?
In 2018, I had a major back operation because I was having problems in terms of with my back, but also with my legs. When I tried to train, I was getting very bad cramps. So I had to miss all of 2018 after the operation. I came back 2019, but I have got permanent nerve damage in my left leg, which means I don't get quite the full power in the left leg. So I kind of have to work on that a little bit, particularly when I'm training.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your athletics achievements, and then also a little bit about your high-level trekking achievements as well?
Yeah, with the athletics, I suppose the first big achievement I really did was literally 2 months after I started running, I entered the Irish Championships, and to my shock, won the Irish Championships literally as a beginner. But I suppose the major one really would be 2017 when I went to the World Indoor Championships in Daegu, and I won the silver medal in the 200 meters. There was a couple of reasons why that specifically is a big highlight for me. One was it was when I was having real problems with my injuries on my back, and I wasn't meant to be going at all because I really couldn't train properly at all. But the Irish over 35s relay team were going, and they wanted me to go to run with them. Now I was 58 at the time. I was saying, what do you want a 58-year-old to go and run with the over 35s? But they insisted that they wanted me to go. And I really said, no, I'm not in any fit shape to go. So at the last minute, I said, yes, I will go. And seeing as I was going, I said, well, I'm going to run the relays. I might as well enter the event. So when we got there, I got to the 60 minutes and finished fourth, which I was absolutely thrilled with. But then going into 200, my back was so bad. The British team had a medical team over there, and they were absolutely brilliant because they were giving me dry needling after every race, cracking my back. Just literally, I was going from track to table, back to the track. And going into 200, I was only seeded about 20, so I didn't even expect to get to the final. Got to the semis, which I expected, and then in the semi-final, I finished second and set a new Irish record, but it was the second fastest time. So suddenly I went from not being expected to medal to suddenly everybody was saying, well, you've got the silver medal. Because I think we all know William, Yovelton, who you've had on earlier on, was running, and we all pretty much knew William was going to win the gold. But what I particularly enjoyed about it was, I was particularly proud of is we ran the semi-final one day, and the final was the next day. And really, I was so shocked that I was in this position. But to be able to go out the following day after having a whole day to wait for it, and to be able to execute the race and get the silver medal, that was really a big achievement for me. Next, I would say is I've won a couple of relay medals, world and European relay medals. And I think there's very few feelings like winning a relay medal with a team, because it just gives you that little bit extra.
What are your PRs for your races?
Well, consider I started late. My 100 meters is 12:18. I'm definitely more 60 meter and 100 meter runner, because my 200 times never reflect what I do in 100. So my PB in the 200 is 25:29, which isn't great in comparison to what I did in the 100.
Yeah.
So I definitely failed. And then I've actually done a few 400s of my PB, and that is 58:23, I think.
Okay.
But I don't train for the 400.
Yeah. Different animal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. So those are your athletics. What about this mountaineering? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's not quite mountaineering now. I've never actually done technical climbing, so I don't want any mountaineers jumping on and saying that's not it. It's high altitude trekking. So
Okay.
we myself and my wife, we've gone and we've done quite a lot of places. We've done Kilimanjaro, we've done Everest Base Camp, we've done trekking in Nicaragua, various different places around the world. But the big one really for me was Aconcagua, which is in Argentina, which is one of the 7 summits, just under 7,000 meters. I can never work it out in feet. You'll have to. And while it's not technically a hard climb, physically it is, because you're carrying all your own gear, you're doing everything yourself, and you're going from one camp up, unloading your gear, coming back down to reacclimatize and going back up. So it's about a 12-day climb. So it's a pretty tough climb. We ended up getting to base camp, and the next morning we were due to go up to the summit. Is only about 200 meters. It's quite close. But horrendous storm came in, so we ended up being basically stranded on the mountain for 2 days, having to work our way to try and get off the mountain. I then got separated on the way back down and had to spend the next night on the mountain on my own before I rescued the next day. But the one thing I really took from that is physically was a very hard challenge, but what we went through as a group and in terms of what we overcame was just amazing. And people keep saying to me when I came back, "Were you not disappointed you didn't get to the summit?" But the way I look at it is, what we experienced is something you would never ever experience. So many people get to the summit, but we experienced is something different, and mentally you really know where you are. So from that, taking an attitude which is always have a target and do your best to get there, but never feel that you failed if you haven't made your target. Because the thing is, if you've done your best to get there and you've enjoyed the journey, well, that's all you need.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of targets, what are your current pending goals and/or events that you're chasing right now?
We're just 2 weeks out now from the European Indoors in Torun, Poland. So we're training for that at the moment. We're just easing off now because we're coming into the easy part. And then later in the year, we have the World Championships in Gothenburg in Sweden. So those are the 2 that I'll be aiming for.
Tell us a little bit about your gym training, one, kind of what you do there, and then also your actual track training. And then also, do you train for this high level of climbing, or is it just you utilize, your track and field fitness to do that? Or there are specific things that you do when you are going to go on a trek?
Yeah, well, in terms of the gym training, I was never very scientific about it. So I got into a habit of going into the gym and doing my own stuff. Maybe if I had a competition coming up, I go and do 3 months training in the gym, but never been very scientific about it. And I just recently, last year, because I was moving into the new age group, I joined up with a personal trainer, Brian Flatty, who runs Performance Dynamics. And I basically went to him and said, "Look, I want a program to take me to Tehran and Gothenburg. So this time I'm training for a year." So what we've done is early on in it was a lot of heavy stuff, a lot of deadlifts, a lot of squats, a lot of kind of basically heavy lifting. And also what he's worked on very much with me is because I do have issues in terms of my flexibility and my movement. So he's done specific stuff on that. So we would have done a block of heavy training, then another block of easier training. And now for the last 3 or 4 weeks, we're just ramping it down. So it'll be lighter weights, more explosive stuff with light things. And that's just all geared into getting the sprinting up and running. So you definitely have blocks of where you would do in season and out season. All the heavy stuff is done out season, and then in season we ease it off and get into the explosive thing. Track is probably a bit like that as well in terms of, and I know a lot of distance runners will laugh when they hear this, but like as sprinters, we do what we consider long distance training in the winter, but that would be maybe repeats of 200 at a very slow pace. Just to build that up, get your fitness moving, and again, you move into a kind of a block where you start doing speed endurance. We would do kind of like 150s, 200s, but our training is generally never more than between 8 and 1200 meters running in a session. Now, I know for 400-meter runners, that would be different, but for 1 to 200s, so we will do maybe 3 or 4 200s at a time pace. And then something in between, and then again we'll wrap that down. So coming into Torun now, I'm at the stage where I'm trying to get my speed. So one of my favorite sessions now would be I will do 230s, 240s, 250s, and maybe a 60 all out of blocks. So you're just really concentrating that at explosive speed. In terms of the training for when I did the I haven't done any high altitude training since I took up the sprinting, because that's one of the reasons I got into sprinting. I was stopping to do the high altitude training. So the high altitude training, when I was doing it, I did 5K runs, longer runs and I just hated them. So I knew I wasn't going to be. And then we don't have very high mountains here, but I would go off for walks up the mountains with maybe 30 kilos in a rucksack and go walking 5, 6, 7 hours just to try and do it. But in terms of altitude, you can't train for altitude. It's just one of those things. You get up there and sometimes it hits you and sometimes it doesn't.
What do you do for a diet and nutrition plan?
I'm not one of these who's massively into diet and that. So all I try and do is I try and eat healthy and small portions. So I will eat just regular food, but just make sure I kind of have certain meals during the day. I don't snack during the day. So I just have smallish meals with good food rather than try to work out or do it. And then off season, I will probably have some chocolate. I'll probably have some wine, something like that. But other than that, my diet stays fairly the same all the year round. I just find it suits me. Some people like, I just don't think I could take having a very regimented diet. It's not in my nature.
Do you try to look at your protein intake at all, or how do you get your protein intake, or is that again just you just eat good food and it takes care of itself?
I eat good food, but then also what I do is I take a protein drink every day, generally after training, because again, it's a recovery drink. And I put some creatine in that because again, I use the creatine. So I wouldn't replace a meal with it because I'm not eating a huge amount during the day. So when I'm doing a training program, after I've done the program, I'll take a recovery drink which has plenty of protein in it and the creatine, and that's how I get it in.
What is your motivation at this point at your stage in life to pursue these goals and keep pushing hard? And is there any kind of a secret that you might want to share with our audience?
For me, it's just a pure enjoyment. I just absolutely love it. I love going train. I've a great group that I train with. I'm very lucky that our coach, Avril Dillon, she's the women's over 40, 60-meter hurdles world record holder and world champion. We have another woman in our group, Adina, who's Romanian, and she's the women's over 45, 200-meter champion. And then a whole group, which we ironically, we call ourselves the precious indoor athletes, because at this time of the year, we're lucky we have an indoor arena there. And because we're going to be racing indoor, we do all our training indoors rather than outdoors. And everybody within that group is going to Tehran to compete. So it's a really good group. So meeting up with them, having like when you go to a training session, it's fun, it's enjoyable. You go away to international meets and you see everybody. It's just, I mean, some of the stories, you meet an athlete, you race against them, and then you realize afterwards when you sit down and talk to them, some of the backstories that they have. So it's just pure fun.
Shane, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing what makes you an autumn athlete that's not done yet. I want to give you the floor to give us some final thoughts.
My final thought will be, if anybody wants to get fit, find something that they enjoy. Don't listen to somebody else saying you've got to do this, you've got to run, you've got to cycle, you've got to do this. Find something you enjoy. If you enjoy it, that will get you fit. If you don't enjoy it, you won't.
There you go. Great advice, folks, from Shane Sheridan, another autumn athlete that's not done yet. Appreciate you watching today. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, keep moving, set goals, and train hard to achieve them. We'll see you next time.